Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education. Featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Tutoring Tips episode of the Prepped and Polished podcast. It's Anooj of Prepped and Polished. Please be sure to check out our website, www.preppedandpolished.com, for more information. While you're there, sign up for our free tutoring and test prep tips newsletter. It comes out monthly. You can join our Prepped and Polished community on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Prepped and Polished. Also, you can submit a question during the show or after to radio@preppedandpolished.com. We love hearing from you. Let's get right to it. All right, so how to get an 800 on the SAT chemistry. So I'm going to give you 3 tips. The first tip deals with studying, taking practice tests, and building flashcards. So studying. You want to get your hands on a Barron's or Princeton Review test prep book and start going through the book. Just review all the concepts, read all the summaries, and then start solving problems in each of those different topics. So, electrochemistry. Start doing a lot of the electrochemistry problems. And while you're doing this, you want to do problems in every single section, even the ones you're confident on, just to make sure. Just to make sure there's something you're not getting, or just getting the practice of solving that problem, because on test day you want to be really quick in solving these. So after you've gone through all these problems, start doing practice tests. Now, I would recommend doing practice tests about 3 weeks before your exam. 1 week before the exam, you want to be doing strictly College Board exams, maybe 1 to 2 weeks. You can start exhausting your Princeton Review or Barron's practice exams 3 weeks before. Do full-length exams, time conditions, make it as close to the real test as possible, just to make you feel, even do it in a different place than you're comfortable in, maybe in the library or something, just to make it seem a little uncomfortable, just like the real test day will be. And as you're doing these practice tests, start marking down questions you're getting wrong, concepts you're not getting, key facts, figures, equations, whatever you're just not understanding. Write these down on flashcards. If you're not getting how electrochemistry, how the electrons are flowing, draw a picture on your flashcard. If you're not getting an equilibrium ice table, you're not writing it out correctly, write one out just so you know the template of how to do that. Get these flashcards, get a lot of them. Review these flashcards as often as you can and every day before the test day. And especially emphasize those flashcards that are based specifically on questions on the practice test that you're getting wrong. And review. It's tip number 2. So tip number 2 is going to deal with formulas. Now here's a cool little tip that I did for the 800 on my SAT chemistry. So what I did is I got a sheet of paper. I think it was like a manila folder actually, but you can do a sheet of paper. And I just wrote down every single equation that could possibly be tested on the SAT 2 chemistry exam. And for example, like the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, right? pH equals pKa plus log base over acid. It's a pretty standard equation. And what you want to do is when you write this equation down, you want to think about how you're going to manipulate it, because the multiple choice is going to do is going to give you, maybe it's going to give you the concentration of the base in the acid and then the pH, and it's going to ask you what the pKa is of this acid, and then you can figure it out. You want to be comfortable manipulating the log, the pH, going from the log scale to the other scale, the 10th power. You want to be very comfortable doing that and practice doing that. If you see an equation that's kind of different, weird, and you don't think you can just use regular algebra to get the answer you want, practice that. And the key here is look at every single variable in the equation, okay? pH, pKa, base, acid concentration, and just think about how you'd solve for one if you have given the other 3, or what information you'd need. If it's like an entropy question, or free energy, you have Gibbs free energy. What other, do I need temperature? Do I need entropy? Do I need the enthalpy? What's going to give me that other thing? And what this is going to do is get you to start thinking about the relationships to these different variables and these different things. And that's exactly what the test wants to see, how well you know these relationships and how quickly you can do them. And speed is important. So when you get these formulas down like that, you can be able to solve them really quickly. All right, so tip number 3. Tip number 3 is pretty basic. It's memorize facts. A lot of people, they like to say, memorizing is, it's not what the SAT chemistry tests. It does. There are some questions that will ask you, what color does barium have on the flame test? It's just something you got to know. It's a fact. Or they'll ask you a solubility question. Which one of these dissolves in this solution? You've got to know the solubility rules. You have to know them. You got to memorize them. There's no way around it. So memorize all, but here's the thing. Say if you see a question you get wrong, and it's like, how color does barium glow? Now you need to go through every other element, not just barium. You got to go through all the different elements that can be subjected to a flame test and know their colors, pink, yellow, orange, and just have them all out. That way, if you ever get a question, that's testing that concept of, what color does a flame test give, you'll know all of them. You'll know every variation of that problem. And same goes for solubility. If something dissolves and, it's a white, murky color, what is, they ask you what compound it is that's being dissolved, or, what happened here, what's the precipitation. You need to know the solubility rules. And there's so many facts that I need to memorize, like intermolecular forces. And you can just see this by going through the prep book. You'll see certain things like, hey, I need to memorize. And the way to memorize this quickly is to write it down on a flashcard. Don't spend a lot of time building the flashcards. Flashcards are useful for just that. You see it and you want to actively recall the information. Writing it down and spending a lot of time making it artsy is not what you're doing here. You're trying to get as many flashcards as possible to test as much information as possible. And so there you have it. Those are the 3 tips on how to get an 800 on the SAT 2 chemistry. Tip number 1 was study, take practice tests, build the flashcards. 2 was, get a formula sheet, practice manipulating the equations. And then 3, memorize the different facts: flame test colors, solubility rules, intermolecular forces. This wraps up our show, episode number 107, how to get an 800 on the SAT subject test in chemistry. Be on the lookout for our next podcast, episode number 108, our next interview guest episode. Remember to access all of our podcast episodes. Go to www.preppedandpolished.com/podcasts. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.